Welcome back. We're doing a check-in on where or a lot of this litigation that's ending up in the courts, challenges to the Emergencies Act, what happened to unvaccinated healthcare workers, all these kinds of legal challenges. And joining us to help us unpack it all is John Carpay, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Thanks again, John, for being here. Just before the commercial break, we were discussing how some protesters who, as you said, did nothing, just simply go to Ottawa and be part of the protest, like tens of thousands did, they were criminally charged. Many had their charges withdrawn, some did not. Why did some not have them withdrawn, and what do you anticipate here?
I can't go into the minds of the Crown prosecutors, but it's pretty scary when Canada now is like a banana republic with polar bears. In repressive regimes, in third world countries, in dictatorships, you can expect that when you publicly criticize the president or the prime minister, next thing you know, you're criminally charged with rape or theft or fraud or murder or something or other. Mm-hmm. And this is normal in most of the world. If you criticize the government, you find yourself suddenly facing criminal charges. But this is where Canada has come to, because these people like Tamara Leach and Chris Barber and so many others, yes, they were involved in organizing this peaceful protest, but there was no violence, there was no threats of violence, there was no arson, there was no property damage, and yet these people are facing trials in throughout the year. There's various people between now and Christmas, quite a few criminal charges, criminal trials taking place because our clients are pleading not guilty. And why the Crown is not withdrawing all charges, I think it's wrong and it's frightening, but I can't really say why.
I'm going to pivot to another case. We hear a lot of hospitals are now dropping their mask mandates, but there's still many jurisdictions in this country, many provincial healthcare systems, where they're not rehiring back unvaccinated healthcare workers, where workers who chose, and it's their own body, they can make that choice, and chose not to get the vaccine for whatever reason. They lost their job. We'll get to the EI benefits in a moment, or the lack thereof. And now we know we are in a healthcare crunch. We don't have enough healthcare workers, but yet these healthcare workers aren't getting hired back. Talk to me about some of the cases that you might be managing on that front.
So the Justice Centre has got court cases on the go across Canada, including for healthcare workers. In British Columbia, it's particularly bad. I remember meeting a doctor who was just not working, not allowed to work for no reason other than his refusal on medical grounds to not take this COVID vaccine. And so the BC government in particular is being completely anti-science and totally ideological, seeking to punish people for making a legitimate choice about their own bodies, what they get injected with or not. So we have cases pertaining to vaccine passports and vaccinations across the country, particularly for the public sector workers, because then the charter applies if it's government. We have not had the resources to take on cases where it's a private employer and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms does not apply.
Yeah, actually, since you brought that up, this is a very important point, and I think some of our viewers may not be aware. But explain in a few sentences when are we allowed to invoke charter rights and liberties, and which jurisdictions do they not apply?
So the purpose of the charter, if it's functioning properly, which arguably has not been in the past 3 years, but the purpose of the charter is to protect Canadians from government. It's supposed to be a restraint on government. So, for example, on vaccination, the charter should be protecting us against the government using pressure and duress and coercion and violating the Nuremberg Code and pressuring people to get injected with a threat of things like a job loss or getting expelled from university, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the charter rights is the right to life, liberty, security of the person, which the courts have interpreted expressly as including a charter right to bodily autonomy. Mm-hmm. So we actually have a say over what medical treatments or vaccines that we get, that we do not get. And the moment that the government is putting pressure on people to get injected, the government's violating the charter. And so you take the government to court. It does not apply to private employers. So if your boss says, I want you to get injected with this substance because I think it's really terrific. And if you don't do it, you're going to get fired. Well, then you can still have remedies in the realm of employment law, but you cannot use the charter against your boss.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting thing because we've seen so many persons, especially in the healthcare system, laid off from their job.